The St. Louis Cardinals have essentially said season's over. Do you agree?
I mean, they're in the National League Central, so really, is a season ever over? I mean, they're in a bad spot. They've had a tough first half schedule wise, and they've made it worse by having a tough first half pitching wise and everything else wise. So their schedule does allow for them to maybe put something together, but not something they can rely on. So, yeah, they're not really clinging to the idea that they're going to make a race of this season. If they do, then everything breaks right, and that's fine. But as the trade deadline approaches, they're certainly looking towards how do they change the look of this team? What do they learn from 2023? How do they take some of the pieces that aren't going to be here in 2024 and move them for help in 2024? So it's kind of those streams are converging in the next few weeks where they don't want to run away from the 2023 season at the expense of the 2024 season. What they want to do is try to find a way right now to better position them for next year.
What would surprise you most of a move that the Cardinals make?
Whoa, what would surprise me most? Um, Gosh, I mean, look, the likelihood of them moving one of their big players, their guys that they're going to hitch the next couple of seasons to is not high. I think a trade of Jack Flaherty and what they would get in return, I think that I don't know if it would surprise me as much as fascinate me, or how they're able to do like Jordan Hicks, like a deal for Jordan Hicks. How can they maximize the interest in a reliever at this time of year? Plus, to be honest, I think like a major deal that answers their solution or answers some of their real big holes for the rotation, I think maybe that would surprise me. The Cardinals have not been a big splash team at the trade deadline either direction. They really haven't been a seller in a generation or longer at the trade deadline. But when you look at their moves, they've been more like to patch over or to acquire. Or a few years ago, they just kind of rolled the dice and got lucky and really got strong performances from like a John Lester, for example. Last year was get Jordan Montgomery to help this year. So a surprise would be if they do one of their winter kind of major moves at this time of year. That'd be something that they really haven't pulled off since 11 when they made the deal that catapulted them towards the World Series, or 2009 when they made the deal for Matt Holliday.
Do you feel like Mo's getting out in front of this and really saying this when no other GMs are saying this because he could possibly be on the block? Or is that just a pipe dream for me that this guy just constantly has his own free get out of jail card pass?
Well, ownership. I think we talked about it last time I was on, Eric, that like ownership is really committed to him because of what he's done holistically for the organization. And while that definitely isn't showing up in the standings or hasn't shown up for 10 years now with a pennant or hasn't shown up now 12 years with a World Series trophy, they remain committed to him. Ownership does. They like what he's done throughout the whole organization and what he's built there. I think, as far as trading him or quote unquote trading him, that's not really what he's not on the block per se. I think he's getting out ahead of it in part because the media is asking about it. But also, like, one of the things here is you can't hide from the obvious, right? Like, that's one thing about St. Louis and other markets too. But baseball is so, the fans just consume everything about baseball here, all the coverage about it. The media recognizes that. The media helps feed it. And so one of the things is you can't hide from the obvious. The obvious is that the roster they built for 2023 is not working. It's not working as a contender. So what is he supposed to say? Give it more time? He tried that earlier. He said, give us patience. Well, patience didn't get them into contention by the break. So now he does need to get ahead of it because the obvious is there. They need change, and they have to find a way to use the assets that they have, the players that they have, and the future they want to have to come together at the trade deadline.
I'll just throw some like random fan comments out there for you to react to if you want. Ethan said Jordan Hicks to Texas, book it. Number of Yankee fans have been saying they want Brendan Donovan or Lars Nootbaar. So what do you think of some of those guys?
Lars is not likely to go anywhere at all unless the Cardinals are just overwhelmed. They got a lot of interest in him this winter. They really continue to get a lot of interest for a lot of reasons. I mean, everybody sees in the metrics and in the performance and the versatility and in the profile. Let's be honest, in kind of his global profile. The Cardinals see what everybody else sees, and they are going to hold on to him. They like him, Edmund. These are guys that they want to continue to be a part of their team moving forward. Brendan Donovan's an interesting one. Nolan Gorman is an interesting one too, especially as you think about like what that second base or what left-handed bat could bring, and how much the Cardinals need that. One guy that wasn't mentioned there is Dylan Carlson. Last trade deadline, he was of interest to a lot of teams because of his play. This trade deadline, he's going to get some interest from teams because of his potential and his versatility, and maybe how they see him fit in his ballpark. Hicks to Texas, that makes sense. The Cardinals trying to maximize what they can get for Hicks makes a lot of sense. They'll also have discussions about other relievers. But I think, it's a good place to start, which is where the Cardinals are starting by saying, look, we're not talking about Lars in this conversation. He's part of the future. He's part of that 2024 and beyond. And the Cardinals see exactly the potential and the production and the profile that every other team sees with him.
Is there a history with the Cardinals in eating contracts in trade type of scenarios, as far as like, hey, you really want Lars Nootbaar? You have to eat Wilson Contreras' contract because I screwed up on this one. Or is there scenarios for that you could see from this team? And not saying that Wilson's is an albatross of a contract, but they essentially have 5 outfielders and they want him to play outfield also. So is that something?
No. So that's a great question. And it's one that if the Cardinals did, that would be a big departure from their promises of what they intend to have as a payroll. If they're going to have a top 3 ticket sales total, and the top, say top 14 revenue, they've often talked about how they should have a top 10 payroll. They're going to be just outside of that this season, pending some additions here at the trade deadline. We'll see how that goes. But they've been the team on the other side of that. They're willing to eat contracts. What they have done is they have made direct trades where they'll take on part of the salary. They did that with Mike Leake. They did that with Dexter Fowler. They did that eons ago with Tino Martinez. So if there's a team that says, look, we have a place, we have a fit, we have an interest maybe in having Steven Matz, then the Cardinals would look at that not so much as kind of a roster clarity move. And if they have to add some money to increase the prospect they would get in return, that would be more of the financial kind of trade that they would make, not one where they would latch on a contract. They feel like they're in position. They still do have some payroll room. They're not going to like divest of spending. That's not their goal.
Derek, with it being All-Star game, we just watched the All-Star game. Cardinals had Nolan Arenado there. Obviously, he goes every year. How painful was it for Cardinals fans to watch as Zach Gallen got the start? Randy Arozarena was out there making plays, stealing bases. Adolis Garcia, a lot of ex-Cardinals playing for other franchises, for other organizations.
Yeah, you talk about those 3 trades, and one of the things that really stood out to me is those are trades that were rather recent. I mean, they're within the past 6 years or so. But the fact that the Cardinals don't have anyone from those trades on their major league roster at the moment, and the All-Star starting lineups had 3. That did stand out, and it adds to a little bit of the pinch, or if you want to put lemon in the paper cut kind of thing, to Sandy Alcantara winning the Cy Young Award last year, and Zach Gallen, who was involved in that same trade, being a contender for the Cy Young this year. So yeah, there's a lot of what could have been there. I mean, the Cardinals are asking that same question internally too. What could have been? Had they pushed harder for Luis Robert Jr.? Is an Arozarena, Luis Robert Jr., Adolis Garcia, is that their outfield? What did they miss? What opportunity did they not give? What development and instruction did those players get elsewhere that helped unlock them? I think, it was a story that I tried to dive into there in Seattle by talking to the 3 players you mentioned about what they found after the trade. Randy Arozarena is an example. He was with the Cardinals. The Cardinals are hungry for offense. He had hit at every level. And Lane Thomas, who is hitting 300 for Washington, so there's another one. Lane Thomas was also hitting well and playing better defense than Randy Arozarena. That's how the Cardinals saw it. Cardinals were going to shift playing time to Lane Thomas, and he was getting playing time early on, maybe game or two in, he gets injured. The Cardinals have to address the dilemma again. Do they look to the offense that Randy might provide, or do they double down on the defense? They thought that their calling card was run prevention and that they would find a way through that. So they made Harrison Bader their center fielder and gave him the playing time. Now he took off, won a Gold Glove, played great, and now he's with the Yankees. So there were three guys for them to choose from. One got injured, one had the exceptional elite defense, and the other one had the offensive potential. And I think it's interesting to look at what opportunity those guys got and how, in some cases, they had to go elsewhere to get it. Same with Garcia. Roster squeeze. They wanted a spot on the 40-man. They wanted to move the spot down a little bit, a few more years. And Texas was there, rebuilding, hungry for right-handed power, willing to take a chance, willing to bet on the upside, and also maybe help him, kind of bring in that strike zone discipline and get Garcia to take off to maximize that power potential. What do the Cardinals not do there? These are questions that they're asking internally. And yeah, fans are asking too, because they see the team that could have been, and then they look at the standings and they see the team that is.